Hello YouTube, Legend Master here with a new video. I'm not even sure which one I've got tonight. I just kind of grabbed a video uh, just because the one I wanted to record didn't actually let me pull it off my phone for some stupid reason. Anyway, I can't even remember exactly what this battle was, but I lead off with Salamence. Well, he goes with Kingdra. I felt Salamence was a pretty good choice because it had a wide variety of attacks, so I go ahead and hit with the Dragon Claw, knowing that Kingdra is immensely slower as long as the rain isn't up. Anyway, Kingdra goes down. That's a good little start. I figured it was a pretty obvious attack there, but I got the Moxie boost, which is an amazing start for me. And he goes into Forretress. Now, I'm a little worried that this thing is a Scarfed variant, so if it is, I have to switch out anyway. So I go ahead and switch. And go into Forretress, knowing it can take any dragon attack pretty well, and put up a few entry hazards. So he goes for the Outrage, as I was kind of predicting, and it does a little under quarter damage. So Forretress takes that rather well, and I can start putting up entry hazards because he's locked in Outrage, which is great. Although Forretress is not going to enjoy taking those hits again and again, especially since he's going to get the 3 turns of Outrage, which is unfortunate, but it does mean I'll be able to put up a layer of Toxic Spikes as well before he snaps into confusion. And I'm just a little over half HP now after 2 Outrages. Here comes a third, and this is starting to rack up, but I don't have anyone else on the team that really wants to take an Outrage from this thing. Forretress is a monster. So I go ahead and put up my layer of Toxic Spikes. And he will probably switch here. I'm not remembering exactly what all happens here. Like I said, the video I really wanted to put up, I couldn't actually pull out for one reason or another. Anyway, I've probably got 25 videos or so in archive. Anyhow, it goes into Dragonite, another dragon type. I think he ran with a full dragon team at this point, I can't remember. So there goes my next layer of Toxic Spikes, and I see the Dragonite, and most of them are either the very defensive build with Dragon Dance and Substitute, as well as Roost, and then like Outrage or something, or they're the very physically offensive, or they're the very offensive variant. Turns out this one is probably special attack based, so I just go for the hidden power, thinking he was going to kill me off. And I know it's a resisted hit, but I don't care. I'm just trying to do a little bit of damage so he doesn't get leftover recovery, so I can bring in the next Pokemon safely, because Immortal has managed to get 3 layers of spikes up. He's got the toxic, or 2 layers of spikes up, and the rocks, so it's pretty nice. But he starts Dragon Dancing here, and this is a bit of a problem. I suppose I should have just gone and switched out and just taken the Hurricane with something else. So there goes the next hidden power, as I am the slower Pokemon of the 2 with Forretress. And I'm still doing just enough to try to keep his HP down, but not really getting anywhere either. And he's probably going to think he can set up all over me, which would be normally correct, but I do have an alternative to this guy, so I go ahead and switch into Heatran, who also resists Dragon, which is great. So I can take at least 1 Dragon attack, and he actually Dragon Dances again, gets a little greedy here, which I'm kind of glad for, to be honest. Otherwise this Dragonite could have caused me some serious problems. But he's at +2 on both speed and attack. I know I can't outspeed him at this point, which is a timid Heatran. So he goes for the Outrage here. I do resist it, thankfully, and I do have Magma Storm, because this is actually a trapper for like weather teams. I haven't actually been able to use it like that, though, unfortunately, so I may end up not using him much, but Magma Storm does a nice hefty chunk of damage, a lot more than I thought it would. But I'm going to lose Heatran, but hopefully I can lock him into confusion and maybe force him to switch or hurt himself and take this guy down. So Magma Storm does a little bit more damage. He goes for the second Outrage. That's going to leave a mark. I'm going to lose Heatran and only manage to do half damage, which is unfortunate. But at least he resisted the hit and did some good damage before he did get knocked out. And it does actually get him knocked into confusion, which is great, because he's either possibly going to hit himself, and with that +2, it's going to do a ton of damage, or I'm going to lose my next Pokemon. But I'm kind of taking the risk and going into Salamence, and he actually switches, not wanting to actually hit himself and risk that, and so he goes into Tyranitar, which would normally be a problem for most Salamences that are more defensively based, but this Salamence is actually not a defensive build. It's a very offensive build, and so I go for the Draco Meteor here just to secure a clean kill on the Dragonite or do hefty damage to whatever comes in. And even though he gets a defense boost from Sand, it still does a ton of damage, which means I know an Earthquake will clean it out no problem. This is probably a very offensive Tyranitar with little to no defensive investment. But that Sand damage will rack up a little bit, unfortunately. And so I just go for a quick Earthquake just to secure a kill on Tyranitar. It does not want to take a super effective hit, especially at such low HP, and it goes down. So Salamence is doing some work. It's taking down 2 of his Pokemon. Heatran did some nice little bit of work with its resisting a hit and getting a nice Magma Storm off. So he goes back into Haxorus, and I know I really don't want to risk it being faster again. I'm pretty sure it's the Scarf variant of Haxorus here, especially since I've had a couple other games with him since, and yeah, it was a Scarf variant. So I go into Forretress again, just to sponge the hits and kind of let Forretress die, kind of as death fodder, but at the same time rack up some toxic damage while having him locked into the Outrage, and also some Sand damage, which is great. So I know I'm not going to be able to keep Forretress, which is unfortunate because he does have more than one dragon here. But with the toxic damage racking up and the Sand damage and everything, I'm not too worried about Haxorus at this point. I survived that second Outrage, which kind of surprised me, to be honest. I know Forretress resists the hit, but we're talking about a Haxorus here. That's a monster, if anything is. Anyway, I do fire off a Hidden Power just because I want to get a little more damage off, and I already got all my entry hazards up, and I don't need to use Rapid Spin. So, a little more HP regained by the lefties, and Toxic is starting to take a toll here. Here comes the third Outrage. It's going to finish Forretress off, which I don't like, but Forretress did a nice chunk of work, sponged some hits that I wouldn't have been able to sponge otherwise, and Haxorus is now confused. It has serious poison damage, and it's also going to take some Sand, so this is really starting to add up on Haxorus, and it won't be able to keep on switching in, not with the rocks up, not with the Sand. So I go into my own Tyranitar, kind of wanting to get a Dragon Dance off and kind of set up here, but he actually switches, and it means my Dragon Dance would be completely useless here, because he goes into Terrakion, which will still outspeed me, even if it is the banded, adamant-natured variety. But I did get the Toxic off, so I go for the Dragon Dance, and I think I decide to just sacrifice him, because waste another turn, get his defenses dropped, go into Salamence, hit it with an Earthquake, and I'll be good to go. Is kind of what I'm thinking I do here. I can't remember. No, I actually do switch, knowing that I do not want to take a close combat from this guy, and the fact is that Terrakion is one of the biggest monsters in the OU environment. He goes for close combat. This is a max HP, max special defense, I believe, Conkeldurr, and even with the max HP and the good bulk, he does a ton of damage, but of course it is a critical hit, which kind of explains it, and that does mean Conkeldurr won't be able to use bulk up and drain punch combo to kind of get his HP back, and the Sandstorm will kill me off, which is very bad, but Terrakion is probably locked in that close combat, and if it's not, I can still more than likely outspeed it with Salamence, take it out with a quick Earthquake, and we will be still doing fairly well. So I go for the Earthquake here, and that will finish off Terrakion. We're not doing too bad here, and I do love this Salamence build. Other people who use a similar build will run a different nature and a little bit different investment in EVs. But I have enjoyed great success with the current build that I have with Salamence, so I really don't want to switch it. He goes back into Haxorus. The Stealth Rock damage is really adding up, and so is the Toxic damage, as well as Sand. He's down to his last time being in, so I decide I'm going to switch out because Salamence has just been tearing his team apart, and I go into Tyranitar, knowing that while it's an offensive Tyranitar, it can still probably take one Outrage. The Toxic and Sand damage might be just enough to kill it off this turn, and the Tyrant Lord's HP just goes down unbelievably. I'm a little surprised by the sheer amount, actually, but it does barely survive with just a smidgen of health, meaning Tyranitar doesn't get to do a thing, which is really unfortunate. I really wanted to play around with this Tyranitar a bit more. But the Sandstorm will finish off the Haxorus, meaning the biggest threat to my team is now gone. So he goes back into his own Dragonite, and I'm back into Salamence. Now, this Dragonite had been causing me a lot of trouble, but I'm tired of getting harassed by this guy, so I just go for the Dragon Claw. Nice, reliable, physical hit, super effective, and that will finish off Dragonite. One nice thing about this Salamence is the fact that it has such versatility. I love how versatile this thing is. And is incredibly destructive as well. However, with that Sand on top of the Life Orb, this is really starting to add up. He goes into Ho-Oh, will lose half the HP from Ho-Oh's stats thanks to Stealth Rock, and gets the pressure going. And I go for the Draco Meteor just to do as much damage as I can before Salamence dies. I'm not sure if I can take it out, but it barely holds on, unfortunately, meaning he's going to be able to attack as well. Salamence is faster than Ho-Oh, thanks to this base speed. Ho-Oh goes for the Brave Bird, and I lose Salamence, but it's a double down, meaning his legend is gone, and I'm not doing too bad here. I do believe that's the end of the match. It was a fairly good match. Definitely was threatened by that Haxorus quite a bit, and Dragonite was a pretty decent threat too. So overall, pretty good game.